Welcome back to SubHub, the podcast where we dive into the strategies behind standout app businesses. Today I'm joined by Steve Young, founder of App Masters, an app marketing agency that's helped thousands of indie developers and app teams unlock massive downloads without massive budgets. Steve also hosts the #1 mobile app business podcast and a popular YouTube channel where he shares tips on marketing, growth, and app store optimization for today's mobile economy. In this episode, we delve into Steve's signature approach to app growth. From ASO and the power of influencer marketing to the importance of data-driven decision-making, we break down the exact strategies that work when you're starting from zero. Whether you're an indie developer or part of a larger team, Steve's insights offer valuable strategies to elevate your app success. Here's my chat with Steve. All right, first things first, I think we want to welcome Steve Young to the show. Welcome to SubHub.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Of course. Yeah, me too. So today, I think we're going to be covering something kind of specific and hopefully very useful to both of our audiences, and it's really about kind of growth hacking and how to get your app in front of more people and get it to be more successful.
I think I actually talked to Vitaly about this exact strategy, but for those who aren't familiar, this is what I call the greatest growth hack in the world, and it's really meant for 0 to 1 strategies, Ben. I think if you're an established app, you don't need to think about all this stuff. But if you're a 0 to 1 app, you're just trying to find some traction for your app. It's early days. Maybe you tried some Meta. Maybe you tried some Apple search ads. Maybe you tried ASO and nothing was really going. This is the greatest growth hack in the world for this. So just to give you some context, I know, Ben, thanks for the intro, but just to give you some context too for those, we work with thousands of apps before with some of the biggest companies in the world. And we've done a podcast for years before, right? We started in 2013 and we've, talked to the biggest people in the app space. Ben, I used the podcast to learn from my heroes in the space, including Chris Barton early on. So thank you, Chris. I will always be, indebted to you for coming on and me really feeling like I made it when I talked to the co-founder of Shazam and the first CEO. But we've talked to some amazing people to really learn from them and really digest that and use that to help others grow their apps too, including our own apps. And so this is what I'm having fun. All right, guys. I'm not trying to be egotistical. I'm having fun with it. It is the greatest growth hack in the world because it can kickstart any app. And so I'm going to break down one of the best case studies we have for this. So first things first, take a screenshot of this. If you're just listening to it, then get ready to take notes or have your note taker app ready to go to. But you want to do a ratings prompt. Now this is like I said, this is for apps that are just trying to get going. If you have 0 ratings, right? I'm like, how are you going to run Facebook ads? How are you going to run Apple search ads? They're not going to give you the impression share because you're probably going to have a low tap through rate. Maybe Facebook's going to be a little bit different, but your install rate might not be there. And so the way I started thinking about this, Ben, was sort of utilize, you hear about habit stacking. This is growth stacking, in my opinion, because I've already done certain things that I know work. So I've sort of stacked all the growth hacks into one greatest growth hack. So one, I know that if you ask for a rating from your user during the first time user experience, about 1% of the downloads will leave a review. Okay. And that's important. And I'll tell you why that's important. 2, you want to do the ASO because if it works, you'll kickstart your ASO and you'll be ranking for a lot of great keywords that after the growth hack, you'll have sustained download growth. You'll get a burst, but we're hoping for sustained download growth. So you want good ASO. And we're not going to go into the detail for that. Secondly, to get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of downloads, again, that 1% number is coming in now. We want to do a lifetime offer for your app. And I know what you're thinking. I have an AI app. I have usage costs. Trust me, you can spend the $5,000 on Meta or some ad platform, or you can spend the $5,000 on actual usage costs. Now, you know your numbers. If you can't do it, I'm not going to force you to do it. I'm just telling you for those who have minimal or low usage costs per user costs, then do this lifetime offer for free. And then we're going to promote it on a platform called App Advice. That's for free. We own Indie App Santa. That's like a Groupon or an App Sumo where you'll have to pay for these type of promos. But App Advice is free. So I always say start off with App Advice. All right. You with me so far, Ben? Anything that you want more explanation on these points?
Yeah, so I mean, this makes total sense. I would say for the beginning there with ratings, it makes total sense, right? That people are not going to be interested in an app that has no ratings or has one rating. So when it comes to that first piece of advice and getting that prompt in there, getting it part of the first user experience, getting people to rate it, what would you see as far as numbers that would let you feel comfortable to maybe move on to the next steps, or where you feel like then the ratings are in a good spot? And kind of as a follow-up question, are we looking at this from the perspective of simple human psychology, of an actual human looking at your app store listing and observing the rating count and using that in their own decision making process and whether they're further interested in the app? And or are we talking about something related to, algorithmic popularity of your application due to ratings, or is it both maybe?
I'm such a pro, Ben. I'm going to know all your answers and I'm going to answer it in the same order that you just asked for it. Okay. The reason why that it is the ratings prompt during the first time user experience, I would say about 100. And that's why I came up with the idea, right? We need 10,000 downloads. The times that I have done more than 10,000 downloads, I've done a lifetime offer for free. So 1% of 10,000 is 100. And that is a number I just made up, but I've read other books that kind of back up 100 being a good number. So it's just triple digits, right? It's not a whole lot, but it's something to get some social proof in there. So that's why you want that in there. So that second answer is 100.
Are we looking at this mostly from the perspective of humans, right, or
No, it's
algorithms?
both. It's definitely both, right? It is definitely both. It is humans just to see it because, a lot of times, even on Google, the way SEO is ranked, especially if you look for like calorie tracking app, right? And you'll see on mobile Google web, mobile search web, you'll see that Google is starting to show apps under that search. And that rating, that sorting ranking is sort of through from my judgment and my personal opinion right now is because of ratings. So for the algorithm and for real humans too.
So as far as the lifetime offer and kind of the specific length of 2 days, is there something behind the 2 days? Is it maybe because of the idea that it's kind of specifically a
Yeah.
tease? You're trying to sort of garner specific attention in a specific amount of time, or is there some other reason why 2 days kind of seems like the
What we
magic number
found
there?
is you don't need to do longer than 2 days. App Advice, when you run on App Advice or Indie App Santa, the first 2 days are the biggest boosts, anyways, because these are daily deal sites. And so you're just old news at that point. And so you can do 7 days if you want, but we only want to do 2 days because we see the biggest impact. And on day 3, we'll even see revenue starting to come in because some people have just missed out on that promo. And so, as long as downloads are continuing to come in, people will end up actually buying as long as you built a good app. So here's the app advice. If you go apps gone free, you'll find it. Look on Twitter. You can see all the information that you need to promote your app on there. Okay. But this is a screenshot, just the visual to show you how it happens. They have an app called Apps Gone Free in the App Store. That's where most of the downloads would come from. So one app we did, Ben, we did 106,000 downloads in a matter of a couple of days. All right. Yep. So it went crazy. Lifetime offer for free. And it was an AI note-taking app. So just FYI, there are some inherent costs, but the developer was willing to take the risk. We had 800 new ratings, 200 in the US, 600 worldwide, with an average rating of 4.8. All right. Because here's the premise, right, Ben? You got something for free. Then if you got a ratings prompt right after that, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you're much more inclined, I think, to give a rating and probably to give a reasonably high one because of that, positive association that was made there.
There you go. Then you get a point for that. All right. The app made $7,000 within its first month post that growth hack. All right. Now, how is that in relation to how the app was doing? It was just making a few $100 a month, Ben. It launched in August of 2023. The developer decided to work with us in December of 2023. We did some ASO, everything we showed you from before. We did the ASO, we did the paywall update, and we ran this growth hack in early January. And since then, it has transpired. Now you're like thinking, Ben, maybe because you're very detail oriented, I can tell. You're like, Steve, why are the sales going down? I wonder, right? You got a huge bump in January, but why is it going down? Well, Ben, great question. And great observation, sales are going down. That's because we had such a boost on this green line, which is app refer, which is app advice, right? We had a big boost. And so that helped the sales in that first month. But if you look at the blue line where apps are search, so more of the organic, so ASO downloads, we're actually climbing up. So it helped skyrocket our downloads and our sales because now we're converting more organic. We're getting more organic downloads and we're getting more organic purchasers.
Yeah, I mean, you're really using the promotion to fuel that longer term growth, right? Because you're improving things like your ASO through both the improvements you've literally made to that, and also things like your ranking is just higher now because you have more ratings, you have more popularity. That's how the engine works,
Absolutely.
right? So you're it's almost like you're fueling a fire, so you're getting that initial burst, but then you're also kind of setting yourself for longer
Ben,
term
stop
growth.
taking away my spotlight, okay? That's enough of you, all right? I'm supposed to be saying these things, all right? I'm just messing, Ben. So look, in September, it sustained, right? This was September 2024, and when we finished the year 2024, I think that's why I love this case study, Ben, because we went from $200 a year to $7,000 a month, $200 a month to $7,000 to ultimately $90,000 in sales for the entire year. So where else can you spend pretty much no money, except hiring us maybe, or just rewatching this video, in terms of like growth hacking an app and making it this successful? Now, does it always work out this way, Ben? I wish it would, because then everybody would be rich. It doesn't always work out this well. But again, where else can you do a growth hack that can get you this type of results? I dare you to come up with it.
Yeah, I mean, the ROI is extremely impressive. Have you noticed with this kind of growth hack a particular category or categories of app that tend to work better on? Are there
Yeah.
things where maybe you could give some negative advice, but like if you're doing X, right, this is probably not going to work for you?
Yeah. I mean, look, if you already got an app that works really well and you got about over 100 ratings, there's no reason why you should do this, right? But the category of app, I think the more that it appeals to a broader audience, the better it's going to work out. This is an AI note-taking app that had 106,000 downloads. Like, we rarely do six figures in downloads. The ones that are more like meditation oriented or fitness oriented, that one applies more to a general broader audience. Those tend to do well than like niche apps. Like, I'm gonna do an ab workout, right? That's probably not gonna work as well. It will still help because here's some other case studies that we've done this app. Here's our app. We did 10,000. This was just the difference between Indie App Santa and App Advice, and how like Indie App Santa we own. So I'm like, all right, we do well too, just in case, yeah. And then our second app, we took it from zero to just a few $1,000s a month, right? So this is another way. This is a brand new app. We launched it. We got to $1,000 right away, pretty quickly using this growth hack. So yeah, anything that applies to more of a broader audience, to answer your specific question.
And just really, so the takeaway here is like fairly broad audience, also likely pretty early, right? You're starting out in your in your journey. You're not a giant established thing with huge ad spend, and like that's a whole different set of problems,
Absolutely.
right? With a whole different set of solutions. But I think for 0 to 1, this makes total sense, and it's actually I have my own app, and
Do it, bro.
I'm basically at the 0 spot, so I may very well take this advice myself and see what happens.
Please let me know how it goes.
Are there any other tips that you can provide? We're looking at specifically 0 to 1, these new folks, maybe around like ASO. There's lots of general advice out there. Is there any kind of really specific ASO hacks that you've seen work recently that are just kind of burning up the chart compared to kind of the general advice that you can get anywhere?
Oh man, you want me to reveal the entire thing? Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you some. I'm trying to share not as much anymore because we've got a pretty decent platform now, and anything I say generally gets taken. But anyways, that's so. What I would say, Ben, is don't sleep on niche apps. Okay, and this is in line with ASO. So for me, there's a lot of tracking apps, and a lot of people are just focused on the same tracking apps, and I'm like, bro. Like, without revealing the things that I know, I'm like, there's a lot of blank trackers that you're not paying attention to that from an ASO standpoint, probably easier to rank for and drive that early traction so that you're not reliant on like, how do I get this app going? Oh, I got to spend money on Meta, right? Like, ASO is free if you can get something to work. So find niche keywords. And why I like niche keywords are here example of apps that we've personally worked with. So I know the exact numbers, but these are the sensor tower numbers that I'm providing for you, right? You don't need that many downloads to make a whole lot of money. That's the cool part of niche apps because they tend to be more painkiller apps, as I like to call them, because you're solving a real need for somebody. It's more niche. So think meditation versus anxiety relief. One has less volume in terms of searches, anxiety relief, but a greater need. And if somebody downloads an app for anxiety relief, guess what they're more likely to do? They're more likely to pay you. And I've seen it time and time again. So I can show you some of my favorite tools to use, but what I've been doing from an ASO standpoint, because ASO is getting so hard these days, Ben, is finding the need first. So finding the keywords first, then building the app for that. So because for the first 10 years of my app journey where I was building apps, especially in the first, let's say definitely in the first couple of years, I was building apps that I thought should be in the space, right? And now I know how hard it is to market and the money that you have to spend in just testing a stupid creative. I'm like, dang it, man, I want the easy route. What are people looking for? Let me just build that. And that's where we've seen some really good success on. And so I'm very bullish on the AI space. You might have those numbers too through Adapty. The AI apps are tending to perform pretty well. And so think about, there's a lot of categories in the AI space. We work with one client that we launched a brand new AI app, Ben, just using ASO alone. We got it to $5,000 in revenue literally within the first month, just because the category was ripe. Like not a lot of people were focusing in on using AI for this particular category. So that's all I can say. And I can show you the numbers to back up so that I'm not just trying to talk black magic here, but at the same time, like, I'm trying to be more cognizant of what I say.
No, and it's not black magic. I can vouch for it as well from the Adapty side. That's definitely what we're seeing. I think making kind of changing especially if you're an indie or a small team and you're working on trying to just be successful in the App Store as a business. I think Steve's advice of, instead of building stuff that you just think should exist in the world, which is a very noble cause in general.
Yes.
If your goal is specifically to make revenue, maybe even in the short term, the strategy of let's maybe back into an app idea through the purpose of the structure of keywords and what is both popular but not too popular, and has interest in the space but not too much interest in the space, so that you can still there's still room for you to kind of elbow your way to hopefully to the front of the chart if you can. So I think that makes total sense. And it is an interesting dichotomy of, we just spent 15 minutes explaining how to, growth hack your way into popularity. And the advice was, don't be too specific with those, because that can make it more difficult.
That's true.
And now we're saying kind of the exact opposite, but that they're I think both good pieces of advice, and they both allow you as an app developer or our company to sort of approach this from two different perspectives, and hopefully gain success in either way. And it's really up to you as a dev, as a team, on kind of which way you want to go. And I've definitely seen both strategies work. So
we did it with ours, Ben. Like, one of our better performing apps right now, it is more of a niche app in the AI space, and we're about $2,000 to $3,000 a month now with very minimal like ASA spend, about maybe $100 to $200 a month on ASA spend. But we found the keyword. It was a more niche keyword. We're able to get it to number one pretty quickly, and using a lot of A/B testing with the paywall, we've been able to get like weekly doing much better from an AI perspective. And so we're starting to see the revenues 3x since we've switched over to giving a 3-day trial on the weekly versus a 7-day trial on the yearly. So that's a brand new case study.
Yeah, it's interesting that the trials, it seems like the trend seems to be that they work better when they're shorter, which you kind of that seems maybe a little bit sort of against what you would imagine, just thinking about it sort of cold, but.
For sure. So here it is. This is an app. I have this in here because we did the app advice campaign right here. That's where we got downloads. So these are the first time downloads, and this is by month. We launched last October 2024. So I just wanted to show you that, hey, we're getting downloads. Like, it's not like the sales were like very low, and you can even see in October did pretty well, November pretty decent, but in March and April a little bit higher, but like April not too much different from November. All right, just keep that in mind. Not too much different from downloads, but we're getting downloads. So we A/B tested these paywalls, A versus B. A has $50 year price with a 7-day trial, and this paywall is working pretty well for most of our clients. B has no trial on the yearly now, but a 3-day trial on our weekly, which is $7. So the prices are still the same on both paywalls. It's just the trial and the layout is different, right? And what we saw was B saw 3x more sales. And I'll kind of break down. This is A. This is what it looks like. So this is the yearly 7-day trial. That's what we're pushing. The weekly has no trial. None of these have trials. we made $2,000 within the first 3 months. So this is we launched around October, from October to really January. I even went a little bit longer in January just to give it more data. But this is how much we're doing total of those 3 months, about $2,000, $800 of which was from the yearly trial, right? 7-day free trial. Now, we saw people activating trial, just not a lot of people were paying us. They canceled pretty frequently. So we made $800 and they made about $300 from the lifetime offer, but $800 for the yearly subscription. Now, when we switch to this paywall where free trial is enabled and the default is the weekly, and then if you hit free trial enabled, then the default is yearly. So technically, if you want the trial, you have to sign up for the weekly, essentially, right? Here's what happened to this paywall, the sales. We saw 3x more sales here, and this is from February to late April. The weekly 3-day is winning, bringing in $4,000 worth of sales for those 3 months. And now the yearly has brought in even more at $1,000. Now it has no trial than it ever did with a 7-day trial. So you really have to play around with paywalls. Even though I felt very confident that this paywall works really well, I was like, I'm confident. This is great. It still didn't work for the nature of this app. The nature of this app calls for this type of paywall. And you'll see, I think, Ben, more people moving to weekly. I mean, I already knew certain categories. And if you're going to ask, photo and video, AI apps tend to be the main categories I've seen weekly work really well on, like logo makers, things that are like more one-time use type of thing. Weekly does really well. So I'm thinking weekly is going to do well too. And I'm sure you guys have the data or some report internally that says, hey, shorter, like lower prices, higher, like weekly, higher, subscription length or lower subscription length would be better.
Yeah, I think particularly for things that maybe, like you said, more transactional, that it's almost like the people, they treat the weekly almost more like a transactional thing, right? Where like, hey, I'm going to use it for a while. It's really great. I'm going to cancel it for a little bit because I'm not using it. Oh, but I need it again. So I'm going to go reactivate it and use it some more. And you could get more revenue than you would if they just maybe tried it once for a month and like, it turns out out of the month, I didn't use it that much. So it doesn't feel like it's worth it to me. And you cancel and you never come back.
Absolutely.
I think with weekly, it makes it feel more transactional to them, which, you might think is maybe a downside. And I think you're right that depending on the category, it certainly could be a downside. They subscribe and go, oh, never mind. Right. But with things that are sort of transactional in nature, like you said, a logo maker or whatever, I think the weekly gives people more flexibility, and I think people value that, and so they're more likely to interact with your app and your subscription kind of in fits and starts throughout the long term. Well, that was such great advice. Huge thanks to Steve for joining us and sharing over a decade of his experience. I, for one, really appreciated the insights, and I'm definitely going to try out some of those growth hacking techniques that you suggested with my own app, Solark. So I'll be sure to report back on how it goes. To everyone watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, thank you for watching and listening. If you found this episode helpful, please give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else, we'd really appreciate a rating or review. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.